From March 4th to the 16th of 1898, the Bport Insane Asylum in Quebec, Canada, became the scene of a terrifying and inexplicable series of events. In just 12 days, 23 patients were brutally slain, their deaths marked by a grotesque ferocity that defied rational explanation. 9 staff members, overwhelmed by the horror, resigned on March 17th. The most disturbing element of this nightmare was the fate of patient 38. Father Augustine LeBlanc, a Catholic priest. Discovered in his room was a diary, its contents so unnerving that it left the staff members who read it deeply disturbed. The first entry in Father Augustine's diary was written on April 12, 1897, the day after his arrival at the asylum. He described waking up in a locked room with only a mattress, a bucket, and an empty diary. The sounds of moans and screams filled the air, confirming his suspicions that he was in a place for the insane. His last memory was of delivering a weekly sermon when a blinding headache overcame him, plunging him into darkness. In this state, he was haunted by nightmarish visions. A black goat standing in the middle of his church, surrounded by the bloody bodies of his congregation. A little girl with black eyes, her hand resting on the goat's back, stared at him, uttering words he could not comprehend. Both the girl and the goat's eyes were as black as night. She repeated a single word, "Idera," as they turned and walked out of the church. The following days brought no relief. Augustine screamed at the window, begging for death, only to see his reflection filled with the black goat and the little girl, who now whispered in Latin. His grasp of Latin was rusty, but what he did understand left him questioning his existence. The visions of the goat and the girl, whom he now knew as Alice, continued nightly, each visit growing longer and more horrifying. Despite his prayers and desperate pleas, they remained silent. One night, Alice and the goat levitated him into the air before walking into the mirror and disappearing. Augustine's cries to the Lord went unanswered as his sanity slipped further away. Augustine's descent into madness was marked by self-mutilation, scratching the skin off his arms in his sleep. The asylum staff, whom he referred to as alkalis, bandaged his wounds and warned him against further self-harm. Despite his pleas for answers, they ignored his ravings about Alice. The visits through the mirror persisted, their Latin words growing darker each time. Augustine's prayers for release were futile, as the black goat and Alice held him in a grip of terror. His diary entries became increasingly frantic, culminating in a series of repetitive, desperate pleas for death. In one final entry, Augustine recounted waking up to find himself looking down at his mattress from the ceiling. Alice and the dark goat emerged from the mirror, and this time she spoke in his language, her words filled with a chilling clarity. Augustine realized that for his torment to end, he had to give himself to them. His diary ended with the repeated scribbling of "O Kid Dara," a phrase that haunted the asylum long after his disappearance. Liam Roy's account. Liam Roy, a staff member at the asylum, broke his silence years later, recounting the horrific events of March 1898. On the evening of March 4th, he was drawn to a room by the sound of choking. Through the window, he saw a man holding a patient by the neck, struggling to breathe. By the time Liam unlocked the door, the patient was decapitated, blood everywhere, and the room empty. The head had been ripped from the body, not cut, a sight so gruesome it left Liam in shock. The head doctor ordered the body buried in the woods, and the staff were sworn to secrecy. Despite their efforts to cover up the killings, the horror continued. Each night, more patients were found mutilated in increasingly horrific ways. The staff, already on edge, were pushed to their limits, tasked with cleaning and disposing of the bodies while maintaining a facade of normalcy. On March 16th, the final and most disturbing event occurred. After cleaning up the last body, Liam was summoned to Augustine LeBlanc's room. The priest was missing, but what Liam found chilled him to the core. Drawn on the wall in thick black lines was the outline of a door. The diary and pen were on the floor, contraband that patients were not supposed to have. Augustine had vanished without a trace. The next day, 9 staff members, including Liam, resigned, unable to cope with the nightmare they had endured. Augustine LeBlanc was never seen again. His diary, now referred to as the Diary of a Madman, became a grim relic of the asylum's darkest days. The events at Bport Insane Asylum remain a terrifying mystery, a tale of horror that defies explanation and continues to haunt those who survived. As Liam Roy left Bport Insane Asylum behind, he carried with him the weight of those horrific days, the images of the slain patients, and the maddening echoes of Augustine's diary entries. He had hoped that distance would grant him peace, but the memories clung to him like a relentless shadow, whispering the same Latin phrases that had tormented Augustine. For months, Liam wandered from town to town, seeking solace in anonymity. He found work where he could, always moving before the nightmares could root him in place. Despite his efforts, the events of those nights in March refused to fade. The dark outline of the door, the guttural Latin utterances, and the haunting visage of Alice and the black goat invaded his dreams. It became clear to Liam that he could not escape the horrors of Beauport. He decided to confront them head-on, hoping to find answers and perhaps a way to end the nightmare once and for all. Liam returned to Quebec, this time armed with Augustine's diary and a resolve to uncover the truth. He began by researching the history of the asylum, delving into old records and speaking with anyone who had knowledge of its past. He discovered that the land on which Bport was built had a dark history of its own. Before the asylum, it had been the site of a series of brutal murders in the late 1700s, attributed to a mysterious cult that worshipped a deity known as Idra. The cult's practices were shrouded in secrecy, but whispers of human sacrifices and dark rituals persisted in local folklore. As Liam dug deeper, he realized that the cult's influence might never have left the grounds. The symbol of the door Augustine had drawn matched descriptions of portals the cult believed could summon their deity. Liam began to suspect that Augustine's visions and the subsequent killings were somehow connected to these ancient rituals. Determined to find proof, Liam decided to return to the asylum, now long abandoned and decaying, a relic of its cursed past. Upon his arrival, the asylum loomed before him, a silhouette of despair against the night sky. Broken windows and crumbling walls spoke of years of neglect, but Liam felt a palpable energy in the air, as if the asylum itself were alive, watching. He made his way through the darkened halls, guided by the dim beam of his flashlight. The rooms were empty, yet filled with the weight of countless tormented souls. He reached Augustine's old room, the door still bearing the black lines of the makeshift portal. Liam set to work, carefully drawing the symbol he had found in Augustine's diary, hoping to replicate whatever process had been used to summon the dark entities. As he completed the final stroke, the air around him grew cold, and a deep, resonant hum filled the room. The lines on the wall began to glow faintly, pulsating with an otherworldly light. Liam stepped back, his heart pounding as the outline of the door seemed to solidify, becoming more tangible with each passing second. Suddenly, the door creaked open, revealing a dark void beyond. From the darkness emerged Alice, her eyes black as night, followed by the ominous presence of the black goat. They moved with an unnatural grace, their forms barely disturbing the air around them. Alice's gaze fixed on Liam, her voice a soft, chilling whisper. "You seek the truth, but are you prepared to accept it?" Liam swallowed hard, steeling himself. "I want to understand what happened. Why did you torment Augustine? Why the killings?" Alice's lips curled into a haunting smile. "Augustine was chosen, just as you are now. The portal binds us to this realm, allowing us to carry out our will. The killings were necessary, sacrifices to strengthen the bond." Liam felt a cold sweat break out across his skin. "What do you want from me?" The black goat stepped forward, its eyes boring into Liam's soul. "You will be our vessel, our link to this world. Through you, we will continue our work." Liam's mind raced. He couldn't allow himself to become a puppet for these dark entities. Desperation fueled his next move. He pulled out a small vial of holy water, a relic he had found in his research, believed to disrupt the connection between worlds. With a quick, determined motion, he flung the contents at Alice and the goat. A deafening screech filled the room as the holy water made contact. The glowing door flickered violently, the connection between realms destabilizing. Alice and the goat recoiled, their forms distorting and fading. Liam seized the moment, using the remaining water to trace a protective circle around himself, reciting a prayer he had memorized from Augustine's diary. The room shuddered, the portal's glow dimming to nothing. Alice and the goat vanished, their anguished cries echoing in the void. The air grew still, the oppressive presence lifting as the portal closed. Liam collapsed to the floor, exhaustion washing over him. He had done it. He had severed the connection. In the following weeks, the nightmares ceased, and the oppressive weight that had haunted Liam lifted. He knew he had narrowly escaped becoming a vessel for the dark entities. He returned to a semblance of normal life, though forever changed by his experiences. Augustine's diary, now safely hidden, served as a reminder of the thin veil between worlds and the horrors that lurk beyond. Liam vowed to protect others from stumbling upon the dark secrets of Bport, ensuring that the past remained buried. The asylum, now a silent monument to its horrific history, stood as a warning of the dangers of tampering with the unknown. As for Liam, he found peace in knowing he had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, a guardian against the terrors that once threatened to consume him.